Hey everybody, thanks for joining us today. John Collins, partner of Parkbench, to bring you news, events, and goings on in Pacific Beach. And today we are going to have a conversation with our neighbor, Stacey Blanchet. She is the owner of Your Own Girl Friday, and she does a lot of things. And she's going to tell us a bit about that, talk a bit about her history and her history in Pacific Beach, and some things she loves about it, and some interesting stories about what she does. So thank you so much, Stacey, for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Nice to meet you, John.
Of course. No, it's been a pleasure. Just talking to you as we warmed up, I'm thrilled to be sharing this time with you. So Your Own Girl Friday, which I looked up, it's reference to an old Cary Grant movie, right?
It is actually a reference. My grandfather came up with the name of my company back in 2004 when I started it. It was a home organization company. And then it morphed into people calling me through my ads in the La Jolla Light. At that point, the La Jolla Light did a thing where you paid $130 a month and you got the business directory. And you were able to be in the La Jolla Light, the Rancho Santa Fe, Gazette, Solana Beach, Carmel Valley, and Del Mar. So you got 5 newspapers. And so I put an ad back there, and my ads were always what I call clever. I asked 3 questions, and if the answer was always yes to those 3 questions, then you needed me. And it was my clever marketing. And I had people that would tell me, and I would change the questions every 6 months. And they would start calling me. I've been watching your ad for 8 months and been wanting to call you, and now I need you, and I'm calling. And I got it. Generally stayed with in-home organization, but then it started helping people in whatever they needed in terms of someone needed a ride for cancer treatment, if someone needed grocery shopping, or if someone needed help with their taxes. My background before I did Your Own Girl Friday was always project management. So I worked in legal, construction, and different backgrounds. So when I walked into any situation, I never knew what situation I was walking into when people called me. So I always said to my clients, if I can't handle it or I don't know how to do it, I'm going to find you somebody who knows. So I was able to help my clients with anything they needed. And that's what I became known for, was the Girl Friday. It's called Girl Friday.
Mm-hmm. And so as I looked into your business, I mean, it's very interesting at the heart of it. I guess you'd say marketing, communications, PR, and branding. But it goes, there are a myriad of offerings, and you're a filmmaker and you're a writer. What do you say when people ask you what you do?
I think I don't normally do the in-home organization anymore, but all of my old clients, at one point I had about 70 clients, and they all know that they can call me at any day, regardless of what I'm doing, if they need help and if they need something. So that's always been open to a lot of my old clients. I don't do any advertising anymore for Your Own Girl Friday because I don't really go that direction anymore. Now, my focus has always been on the PR, marketing, communications, because that really is my background. I've always been in marketing. And when I started doing fashion designing, I did all my own marketing. And so people started seeing all the marketing that I was doing for my fashion designing and my books, and they would call me and ask me, can you do the same for me? And I never really thought about doing the same for other people. So having built the network that I did for myself, I just took it and then built on that for other people. And so when people call me that they want branding or if they want marketing, I always look at my clients in 3 different levels. Are you media worthy, or are we looking at advertising, or are we looking at different levels of media? And what do you want to accomplish out of it? For example, if I'm doing public relations for my client, Lions, Tigers, and Bears out in Alpine, the name of the game is to bring people out there. So all of our advertising is going to be, how do we reach the most amount of people? And that's really television. Because in one segment, she can reach 2 million people, as opposed to a newspaper where maybe 50,000 may pick it up or may not. So it's taking the client, looking at what their needs are, and then staying with it. I always tell people, if you want to do PR and marketing, you need to have at least 5 to 6 months of sustained PR, just to gauge where you're at and then look and see what you need going forward.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's really interesting. Media relationships are very difficult. You need to really have what I call media-worthy clients. Because what people don't understand is, if I were pitching a client to, let's say, television, and that client is not really television worthy, my email gets blocked by the producers. Mm-hmm. So I lose that ability to be able to pitch any other clients. So a public relations person needs to know what they're dealing with when they're dealing with that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. And I know you are a filmmaker and you have those relationships, and a lot of your work is in the entertainment space. Mm-hmm. You mentioned you spend a lot of time in LA, and as you mentioned, it's a relationship business, as you were saying. How did you make those initial inroads?
Well, I think I kind of consider myself Forrest Gump, where I sort of walked backwards into this. I haven't had to make a lot of the hard sacrifices that a lot of people make, where you're pounding the pavement, you're sitting up there year after year, making the same connections, trying to get that phone call done. I've always said, don't quit your day job until your dreams can fund your lifestyle. So my day job has always been doing publicity. It's always doing communications, marketing, Your Own Girl Friday if I need to. But then when I started doing fashion and going into the entertainment industry, I was not producing at that time. But I got to meet a lot of people who were producers and directors and people who were in the entertainment industry because they were interested in what I was doing. And so having done that gave me an in to get to know people. So if a deal comes my direction, I have multiple people I can send that to and say, is this a fair deal? Is this not a fair deal? But for somebody who's just starting out, who wants to make it in Hollywood, I would say, don't go to Hollywood. You're not going to make it in Hollywood by going to Hollywood. You have to make a name for yourself. If you want to be a filmmaker, you need to be in film festivals. That really is the way to get in, because even though film festivals are not big with the public, if you are in film festivals, they require the people with the film to be at the film festival in order for the film to be shown. That's how you meet directors, producers, actors, that type of stuff, to find out how to get into it. Go to networking meeting, acting classes. And there's some people who get lucky. They can get it off of social media, but that's such a small group. And to hang your head on that is really not going to get you anywhere.
Right. And it sounds like what you're saying is just participate in the community until you become a part of the community. Exactly.
And trust me, they know. I know this sounds really strange, but one of the best lessons that I get is from the red carpets. So when I watch like the Oscars, the Golden Globes and stuff like that, and when you hear these people and you hear them winning, they're always thanking the person that they've been with for the last 20 years, means that job is not coming open. Right. That job has been taken and that person is in it. And so you have to kind of create your own community. And when you start getting into filmmaking, you start realizing how important it is to have people that work with you and work well with you. Because it is a very difficult business. There's not a lot of money in it for a long time. So you really need to have a way to make a living while you're trying to do it. And you just don't know. I mean, there's no such thing as a new idea. Everybody's got the same idea. It's just whether or not it can be done and who's going to finance it. And that's really the big key, is unless you have your own money, you have to look at it as a business, because you're going to other people and asking them for money.
Right.
So if somebody goes, I've got a $40 million film and they've never made a film before, they're not getting that film made. No one's giving them 40 million.
Right.
You got to start off at, I mean, it's the same, I think, for any business. I think you need to look at it. It's called show business for a reason. It's a business. Mm-hmm. And it's just having business skills 101. And nobody's giving you 40 million if you've never even budgeted 100,000. So it's baby steps, and I mean, and it's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned just different kinds of media. You mentioned TV and newspapers and social media. And in the time you've been in the business, we've seen a pretty huge shift in which of those are important or accessible or get the most attention. You know, everybody thinks of social media as being the place to get, you know, TikTok famous or whatever these days. And, you know, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the value of those different medias.
Well, I also, okay, television is still supreme. It's still number one. You reach more people that way, and you have undivided attention. Social media reaches mass groups of people, but I don't know how. I've never looked at social media for any of my clients as a way to sell a product, so to speak. I don't know how that. There are lots of people who, like, let's say you're Tide. Everybody knows what Tide is. So Tide can only come out with 10 different versions of Tide. You're just gonna have to pick and choose if you want Downy with it or if you want Febreze. Social media for Tide is gonna be like an extension of the products that they move. If you are brand new to the game, you definitely need social media. So if you're a brand that's just coming out, you have to have social media. But if you're expecting social media to sell your product without having another plan in terms of marketing, advertising, you're not going to make it. You have to have the numbers, have to be in the millions to be generating revenue from social media. And to be able to sell a product is extremely difficult, from getting a person to watch you to buying what you're talking about. Those are two different things. Television gives people what I like to call credibility. That's why it's so hard to get on there. They do their homework. I say some of the best things that you can do if you are, let's say, a store in La Jolla. La Jolla Light is the best thing you can be doing. Planning events in your store is going to be the best thing that you can be doing. If you are somebody who has an e-commerce site, you've got to figure out how to take it national. That's going to be social media and marketing, Facebook, Google, that type of stuff. Television is not going to be interested in you because they're not interested in giving anybody free advertising.
Right.
So you have to have something a little bit more to bring to the game. Community newspaper groups are thriving. People are loving their community newspaper groups. They're reading them. They get delivered to people's doors. People want to know what's going on in their communities now. We are a very community-driven, I believe, society, except for if you're working on, like I said, a national stage. But having mixers, networking, talking is really how people are getting their information, how they're buying stuff. People are buying locally. They're going to their farmer markets. They're going to local stores. They want to buy coffee from places that are in their neighborhood. They want to sit down and get to talk to their neighbors. Community groups are making it. I think, in my opinion, if you are somebody who wants to get the name out, you really need to look at what you want to accomplish by getting the name out. Do you want to play on a local stage or a national stage? If it's local, then you need to stay local. If it's national, then you need to have a lot of money and you need to have a really good marketing team behind you. It's going to help you with a message. And if you know how to write, and this is what I always tell everybody, if you know how to write, and I mean write well, magazines and newspapers are always looking for articles, self-written articles, something to teach their audience. So if you're local in La Jolla, I say write an article in La Jolla for the La Jolla Light that would educate people in La Jolla, not selling a product, but getting a name out about that person. If you're in Pacific Beach, do that. If you're national, go for the magazines, because the magazines have to have 4 to 8 articles a day published on their website. That's a lot of content.
Yeah.
And it's the same for video as well. Video is number one for all magazines. So if you have video, then the magazines are looking for video. So if you have a tutorial, something that's interesting to their audience, do your homework. Find out what magazines want. One of the things I offer my clients is I write an interview with my clients. I control the narrative. I'm always taking people through the process of what my clients are doing. And magazines love that. It's not selling them anything, but it's teaching them about what makes my clients so interesting. And so I can usually get articles printed. I think I'm maybe 80 magazines now worldwide.
Oh, wow.
Some of my interviews of my clients. And I can give you an example. I love the Beverly Hills Hotel. And every time I walked into the Beverly Hills Hotel, I kept thinking it was missing my client's artwork. And so I picked up the telephone and I called the marketing director of the Beverly Hills Hotel. And I said, you need to know my client. You need to have my client's artwork in your hotel. And she had me write an email to her. And I talked to her for an hour and a half on the telephone, went over everything, sent her everything by email. And my client was at the Hotel Bel Air for a year and a half with all of his work all over the Hotel Bel Air. And they flew him out. It was the first time they'd ever done it in 70 years. So think outside the box.
Yeah.
You know, and of course he sold artwork, and then COVID hit.
Right.
So what are you going to do? You know, hotels have to close down for a year.
Yeah, that is tough. And it has been a wild year. Has that changed your business much?
PR completely stopped for a year. There was no breath, no room. Nobody was interested in knowing about an artist or an actress during COVID. But I got to tell you, in the last 2 to 3 weeks, it's picking up like gangbusters. I mean, people are moving. Networks are calling. I've got my old national list out now. People are emailing me and asking me, what do I have? What's available? You know, what kind of clients? But unfortunately, I don't think clients have the money right now for PR because of the fact that COVID took away everyone's income for a year.
Yeah.
So that's the real challenge too. Nobody wants to do anything for free. I don't do anything for free.
Right.
So, you know, it's only the clients. And I was very lucky. The client that I just brought on, I worked out a deal with her because I wasn't sure what's available out there for an actress right now. Mm-hmm. So I made a deal with her, said, let me play around with this for a month. And I'll give you my services at this price. Let's see what happens after the first month. And let me find out what's even still available. A lot of media closed down and it's not coming back.
Right.
So B-level media really closed down. A-level media, television is never going anywhere, but it's going to get even harder to get on. Right.
Well, but on the other hand, you know, with going back to your point about 4 articles a day, that the number of platforms and the amount of content that they're going to have to generate to fill them up, hopefully will be a counterbalance.
You know, you would think, but magazines have now all gone digital. So a lot of the print magazines are no longer doing the print. That's a great way to get stuff out. I mean, I always tell everybody, get an article written about you. I mean, if you think it that interesting, you know, you could even write it yourself. But you have to really know the magazine. You have to know what they're looking for. And there's so many websites now and let them do the marketing for you. If what you really want to be, if you're an actor or an actress, is you want to be relevant. So if you want somebody Googling your name, you want new articles coming up, not something that was 10 years ago.
Right.
Dates you. If you are a product, it's the same. You want to be relevant. You want people to find the newest, greatest, latest stuff that's out there. So PR really is just, in my opinion, to make people relevant and hopefully make you money. Mm-hmm. But it's hard. I mean, everything's changing. Even the speaker circuit, you know, going out and professionally speaking, unless you're Richard Branson, most conferences now no longer pay speakers. You have to pay to be there.
I did not know that.
Yeah, because they're giving you the venue, they're giving you the marketing, and they're giving you the audience. So they're bringing everything to you. So what you need to have is something to sell to that audience. It's usually a program, a book, something like that. And so you're reaching a mass amount of audience. But it's hard unless you're doing corporate speaking. Corporations still pay, but a lot of the conferences now, they're not paying speakers. So and most of them require you to bring in a certain amount of speakers or guests. So if they give you a spot, you're required to sell 20 to 30 tickets. And if you don't get any speaking fees, I mean, it's tough.
Well, I think that's just fascinating. We could talk about it for a very long time, but
you can't. It hasn't changed. I mean, the business is changing, but it's really kind of not changing. That's really what people need to know. It's really not changing. It's just getting harder.
Yeah. That's brilliant. But let's talk a little bit. I mentioned before you're a San Diego native. You've been in Pacific Beach for a while. What are your favorite things to do around? Are there a few businesses that you would want to put a spotlight on and talk about? What are your favorite things to do?
Well, let's see. I do a lot of dinners. So I'm either doing dinner parties here at my house. And yes, I did them during COVID. So I will say that I was a bad person, but I kept my group. We were the same group.
Gotta have a bubble.
We stayed safe and we did our dinner parties. Everybody knows me from the trails in Kate Sessions Park because I go there with my dogs. I've always had my dogs. Probably for the last 20 years, I'm known as the lady who had a dog that was in a wheelchair for like 2 years at Kate Sessions. Everybody used to see my dog in a wheelchair. It was pretty funny back in the 2000s. And I'm up at the trails, but my favorite restaurants in PB are going to be Costa Brava. I go there a lot.
Yeah.
There's going to be my favorite French restaurants. Going to be the Bistro de Marche in La Jolla. I go there a lot. Catania in La Jolla. I'm also known for putting together dinner parties at restaurants. So I get together groups of people and I pick a restaurant and do that. Do a lot of movies. I probably do 4 or 5 movies a month when the movie theaters are open, which they did last week, and I've already been 3 times. So I have my group of friends to do that, and then a lot of it's just really day-to-day stuff, going to like the Y to do my swimming in La Jolla, working out on my computer, talking to people, doing Zoom meetings. COVID stopped the PR business side for me, but it didn't stop the movie making side. Everybody was still doing Zoom meetings and getting everything ready so that when Hollywood did open up, you could start filming. And what was stopping everyone from filming in Hollywood was the insurance for COVID. Right. No film crew they just couldn't afford it. So now that restrictions are lifting, California is the last one that's going to come back for filming, but we're going to bounce back the fastest because we have the biggest industry here. And so the money is really in California. The entertainment industry is going to be in California and it's going to stay in California. And I think it's going to bounce back even faster. But PB is just, I can't imagine living anyplace else. I love PB.
Me either. Love it. Well, man, I appreciate your time so much and the chance to get to know you a little bit better. And I look forward to seeing you at Kate Sessions.
Yeah.
And I just can't thank you enough for the time. Anything, I know your business is one that grows pretty organically and you're not here to pitch a big message, but is there anything you want to direct people to, anything in particular that you point them to, whether it's a project or a website or anything like that?
No.
All right.
I would love to be able to say yes, but it's like, I'm not really quite sure what, I don't do tips. So it's not like if they went to my website, they're going to find out, how to do tips or
right.
I'm just not that person. I'm busy working on my clients. I'm not really willing. I don't really want to get out there. I never did blogging. Instagram is hit and miss for me. I don't do Twitter at all. I'm never gonna do Twitter. I should say never, but I'm pretty much gonna say never. Facebook, I have probably about 8 pages on Facebook, and each page is dedicated to my projects. And I only put stuff on those pages that has to do with my projects. I don't overload my pages with like, what am I eating today? My friends, that's never going to be me either.
Right.
Sorry.
Well, I think it just goes to what I think we were discussing a little bit before we started recording was the job of PR is not to be out front, right?
And also too, one of the things I'll tell an early story, just so that people know the importance of social media, is that I had a page called Blanchet Designs, which was for my fashion design company. And I had no idea that the producers of the Primetime Emmys were looking at my page because I had very little traction on it and very little audience. But they watched me for 4 months on my page to find out if I was somebody they could work with. They wanted to see what I was posting, what I was posting about. Was I going to be somebody who was going to keep a secret? That type of stuff. So I got the job with working for the Primetime Emmys based on a page that had 0 to no activity on it, just because they wanted to see what kind of a person I was. So social media is very important to a point where people can learn about you, but you may not even know they're looking at you. And I always say, so when you put something on social media, expect 1 million people to be looking at it, or your next job employer, or somebody who may want to work with you. You just have no idea unless everything you have is completely locked down. But there are ways to see stuff on social media without. Yeah. So that's my biggest tip that I can give anybody who wants to start out in this business is pay attention to your social media. It's very important. Yeah.
And you don't even, it's hard to account for the lens of tomorrow as opposed to the lens of today, how it's going to be perceived. So yeah, I mean, I have young kids and they aren't online in any way, shape or form, except for my Instagram yet. But yeah, the internet is forever.
It's forever, and it's stuff that comes back to haunt you. And I'm proof of that. I mean, there's just stuff, I don't have anything on there that I regret, but I've had people come back and talk to me about stuff that I really didn't even think anyone was looking at from 2007. And I wasn't even on social media. This is articles that I wrote, and it resonated with people, and they're looking for help, and that type of stuff. So it comes back. It doesn't go anywhere. It stays there. It's forever.
Good to remember, and a good place to put a pin in it, I think, at least for today. Yes. But I appreciate your time so much, and I'm delighted to be closer acquainted, and I'm looking forward to staying in touch.
Yeah, looking forward to it too, John.